Welcome back to Website and TV. I'm Gemma Houghton. Today I'm joined by Nick Wilsdon, who's the lead SEO for Global at Vodafone. I'm going to be talking about the challenges of managing SEO on a global scale. Hi Nick, thank you for being here.
Hi Gemma, yeah, it's very good to be here.
So obviously everybody knows Vodafone and knows it's a pretty big brand and business, but just how many markets and languages are you operating in?
Yeah, it's a phenomenally large organisation. I mean, you're dealing with sort of 22 core markets, 65 plus partner markets. I think 438 million mobile customers. So yeah, it's a very large organisation.
And when it comes to then managing the website and SEO, it's probably about as big as it gets. So within that, there are a huge amount of challenges ranging from, the language side of things, the technical implementation, the kind of people and team management. So we're just going to try and touch on a few of the key things today that maybe are challenges for any business that is targeting international markets. So firstly, when we actually do talk about kind of the people and the processes involved, when you're working with that many different websites and pieces of content and people, obviously that's pretty tricky. What are the fundamentals as a kind of centralized manager of the kind of SEO project? Do you really need to have in place to basically stop yourself going insane?
Yeah, obviously it's a lot of people to deal with. It's a lot of individual digital specialists within markets, but also agencies. I mean, roughly half those markets have agencies as well. So you've got a lot of different kind of relationships. Yeah. I think the way that's worked for us has been kind of to build a community and to build an SEO community within Vodafone, and kind of celebrate the skills that we have in markets and what's really working. And by community, that means that we've kind of created social channels where we have webinars where you have 100 plus people on the webinar discussing very, very specific Vodafone related SEO. And that kind of environment is a great place to discuss data, share case studies in an environment where you can do that with each other because you're within the same company. So I'd say that was the guiding principle really behind the program. Was kind of to encourage that community and to build that community and to share knowledge between different markets. Because obviously individual opcos wouldn't have the time to build case studies and share it and highlight it between each other. But fundamentally, markets want to listen to other markets. Yeah. And my role has been very much to help them. Not so much. It's not a managerial role. It's very much to help the markets to do what I can to make their life easier. So that's worked very well for us. And
so I guess, like you say, also appreciating the fact that everybody has value to bring, appreciating the fact that, and making them aware that you know that as well, and rather than it being a dictation then from the centralised down, it's making everybody feel a part of what you're trying to achieve.
Yes, absolutely, and as you know, localisation is so important within SEO. So they have particular pressures, they have particular priorities really within their market. So our approach to that has been to have a sort of series of strategies that have been developed. And then they can choose from that up to 20 strategies. They can choose from mobile optimization to local store optimization, depending on the priorities that they have. And so that's kind of allowed different markets to sort of take those strategies, run with them. And then as they've inputted into them, succeeded, created case studies, and that's been rolled out and showcased to the rest of the group. And then that's kind of enriched the information, the data that the group has in terms of their SEO strategy.
Yeah, so actually there's that real advantage that you can almost different markets, because they're focused and passionate about a certain area, they can almost be the guinea pigs for that. They can test it, try it, and then what does and doesn't work can be rolled out to other markets. Yeah,
absolutely, and it's a perfect way to actually get things happening in those kind of scenarios, because you'll find there's a strategy you really want to push, you really want to employ, take some of the more cutting edge mobile strategies, and the way to do that might be to do it with a smaller market or a smaller opco that's more enthusiastic and more agile. They will then carry out the strategy, and then that becomes a case study that allows you to push it in a sort of much larger market, or one where you've got some more resistance.
And it is always a challenge for a brand that has obviously a global brand in this way, that's obviously got some key brand values, some key messaging, some key things that must be consistent everywhere, but equally, like you say, to allow for that localization, which is so important. How do you monitor it? How do you ensure, and how do you get people buying into the fact that they have to stick to certain brand guidelines and know what they are, but also where they've got the freedom to be a bit different?
Yeah, well, localization is really important, and standardization. Obviously, when you're dealing with that many markets, the value you're providing is to standardize activity. But I don't want to sort of kill off their creativity, and especially in terms of copy campaigns, these are very there's a very strong local focus.
Yeah.
So we have implemented, global brand guidelines. So assets. I mean, a very practical example of that will be on the App Store. So App Store optimization, you kind of want everyone to be using the same imagery, the same icons. You want consistency there. So you want to make it easier for your customers to recognise Vodafone and to move from market to market and still know what you're doing. So there has been, you do try and introduce consistency, and certainly within campaigns, we've looked at providing assets and providing central repositories of assets to make their campaigns easier and to allow localization to happen within markets. But it's maintaining that balance.
And then when it comes to kind of reporting and analysing data and that kind of side of things, obviously if you've got teams in each market, they're going to be doing that probably in a slightly different way, or potentially in a slightly different way, on different timelines and everything. And then sitting in the global side of it, you've got to kind of pull it all together and be able to make sense of it to, share with, for example, the board or the senior management. What tips maybe would you have for how to centralise reporting, how to make it more efficient and make it work better for? Yeah, it's
a good question. I'd say if you're in a role similar to mine where you are dealing with a lot of markets, everything does have to be automated, and I think that was a lesson I learned fairly early on. That if something becomes too manual, then you literally can't do it. So move on to everything has to be automated, or it can't be carried out. Secondly, I think gamification has been a really interesting area for me. In terms of motivating different markets to carry out strategies or to do better. Sometimes it's better to kind of have a position where you're comparing market against market, because largely, England and Ireland will always be competing. New Zealand and Australia will always be in competition, and everyone competes with Germany. So it's good to kind of have a scenario and a reporting scenario where you can look at the performance and measure the performance of different markets against each other, and have that as a very visible league table, if you like, on different aspects, from technical SEO to traffic to performance to improvements.
And I guess that goes back to the point of it being a community, the fact that they're all in a different team, but everybody, it's not that they all work in isolation and it's just that it only matters what their team does. It brings that back to the bigger picture of sharing what's going on in the whole community and being able to... Absolutely,
and it gives you great opportunities. I mean, I know I don't think it's a problem to share this with you, but Albania is one of our best performing markets for page performance, and their team do a fantastic job. Same with Czech Republic, and those markets love the fact that they're exceeding the performance of much larger markets like Germany, Spain, Italy. So that really does work, and it provides a scenario where they can be congratulated. The teams their work can be highlighted, and the work they're doing can be showcased at a much higher level, at a kind of group level, where they're kind of rewarded, and that gets fed down through their CEO and C-level board.
Which is obviously, very important for a global brand, and especially, like you say, for maybe markets that aren't the big markets, to suddenly get that recognition and to know that they're contributing to the success of the business overall. It's got to be important.
Oh yeah, they love that, and I think that really kind of encourages the enthusiasm that we have around the programs that we run, especially across sort of SEO and performance.
And then to go on to kind of the more technical actual implementation side of SEO, when it's international, obviously one of the biggest topics is always geo-targeting, and that's always the biggest challenge, to find the right strategy for that and make sure that you are creating that content that is going to the right user. What, in your experience, has been the kind of most effective way to manage the geo-targeting on such a large scale?
So I mean, we're very lucky, and we're in the position now where Google's given us a lot of tools to help us deal with those scenarios. So obviously the hreflang tags are amazingly useful. So implementing those, making sure that your content is really well targeted to that specific community, to the group you're trying to speak to. I think it becomes more problematic in our scenario where you're talking about a website like Vodafone.com, which becomes a kind of global site on top of a lot of very specific country sites. And then the global site also wants to speak to each country. So then you have sort of dedicated pages, dedicated content for each market that the global site will talk to. But then dealing with duplicate content is I'd say that's been my biggest challenge really in terms of the global strategy, is kind of dealing with that duplicate content and within sites, within subdomains and sites, and within the global.
And what have you found to be, how do you deal with that? Because that is something that many businesses really do struggle with. And it is difficult when you've got, 8 different language, Spanish language sites that are all slightly different but very similar, and you're trying to manage all of that. What kind of can you put in place to minimize the risk of that?
Measurement. I mean, luckily a lot of the tools are looking at this problem now. So I think precise measurement and working out where we are cannibalizing our own traffic is really useful. Secondly, having different processes in terms of that kind of sign off and checking off procedure from the SEO team to deal with each duplicate content problem as it arises. So that's a very specific SEO problem. So to have some kind of control over the content production from the SEO perspective really helps, and then we kind of step in and say, we think this page deserves to be somewhere else, or this page, the content needs to be changed.
And then obviously mobile is a huge topic for everybody. For Vodafone, it's got to be even more important because a mobile operator has to have a good mobile experience.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
Again, on a global level, to make that, to add that extra level of challenge into it. How have you approached that? How do you make sure that the mobile experience is top notch?
You're right. I mean, if anyone should have a good mobile experience, it would be us. So it's a high priority. I mean, My Vodafone, which is obviously the app for Vodafone, is a very high priority within the company. The way we approached it really has been pushing out these specific strategies around app indexation and deep linking. And deep linking for us is probably one of the most interesting areas. Because if you take the kind of functionality that we can provide, such as top up, for example, then we want to be linking directly into the app to allow users to go directly into the app environment and top up from Google results. And a good example of this is the work that we're carrying out in markets like India, where the term recharge has over 500,000 searches per month. So this is obviously a large amount of traffic goes through these terms. So if we can direct them to the app, we've made life a lot easier for our users. So I'd say app indexation has been a big part. AMP, implementation of AMP, we were the first telco in the UK to do this. And what has your experience been of that in general? Because it's been mixed. I think initially I was not as pro AMP as I am now. And I think the reasons for that were, as many people have said, there are concerns around putting all your pages and your content with Google, and also the fact that we have a very mature performance program. So AMP kind of introduces some pressures in the sense that why are we running a performance program? Why aren't we using AMP? And I think as people are beginning to understand with AMP, it's a complementary technique within that toolbox, but you still need to have a much wider performance optimization stream. Because you need those back-end processes optimized. You need the number of SSL calls. There's a lot of other work, and even the AMP developers have said that if the sites are very bad before you run AMP, then you can't expect the best performance from AMP.
It's not just a cover up for poor mobile performance.
And I think it's been taken exactly, Gemma. And I think it's been taken a little bit as a silver bullet. And I think it is incredibly useful, but it's a part of the toolkit. I
think by now people should realise there is no such thing as a silver bullet in SEO, whatever.
We should know by now.
We all wish there was, but there is not.
No, absolutely. But the results we've had from AMP have been fantastic. I've been, and that's kind of swung me around now to using it, and the rate of development as well. I mean, if you follow the GitHub repository of AMP, there are major releases now on a weekly basis. So it's phenomenal. The rate of development for AMP is phenomenal.
But that obviously, again, that is the kind of challenge that when you are operating on such a level with so many different language versions and so many country versions, that new changes like this, where there are regular things to change, that makes it, that's got to be rolled out on a very large scale.
Absolutely. And I think something that's helped us in terms of doing that has been using our tag management system.
Yeah.
So we actually use Telium within Vodafone, but I know you can do a lot of this with Google Tag Management. But the idea of using your tag manager as a kind of SEO data layer, so put all of your SEO information into your tag management system, which allows you to bypass development roadblocks, and you can you can use tag management for changing titles, for replacing descriptions, literally for any changes you want to make on the page, as long as the loading procedure is in the right order. So that's been our way of kind of getting around blockages and running proof of concepts.
But for global businesses especially, that is definitely something that can save you a lot of time and make your processes much more efficient. And avoid mistakes, I guess, because it just automatically changes things rather than you having to manually do it on each.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It saved a huge amount of time, and I think it's got a role to play really in any large enterprise deployment of SEO. I think it's absolutely essential to understand how your tag manager can help you. And even if you're not going to keep that set up permanently, you can still run proofs of concept, you can run tests doing that, and then once they prove themselves, then you can write it into your development streams to be hard coded into the page. So it's a very, very useful technique.
Great. Well, there's lots of interesting insight and useful tips there, so thanks very much for sharing them.
That's great. Thank you, Gemma.
Thanks.
Yep.